While we continue with our broadcast this morning, we are out and about in Cape Town at the UCT School of Business, really as we continue with the celebrations of the South African Qualifications Authority, as well as looking at some of the events that they've got planned for this week. Now, joining me to continue that conversation, I am joined now by the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Qualifications Authority. I'm talking about Mr. Joe Sameuls, and we're really deliberating in terms of exactly how significant some of these events will be. But thank you so much, Joseph, for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Now, we're looking at one of the particular seminars that will be held this week. Is it the International Qualifications Seminar that will be held?
It is the International Qualifications Framework Seminar.
Yeah.
And we are running the seminar in conjunction with UNESCO. UNESCO is bringing out about 18 of their top experts that will focus on qualifications frameworks, and these people are involved across the globe. And part of the reason for hosting the seminar is that, given the fact that we are 20 years young, that we are reflecting on what it is that we've achieved over the last 20 years, but also we are wanting to project into the future and say, what will the next 15 years, 20 years look like in particular, and see where can we go to, and how can we make the qualifications frameworks much more efficient, much more effective, so that they can serve not only the nation in South Africa, but also globally where it's going to.
Well,
so that is very significant that we've been able to do that, and we get these experts to help us to reflect the future.
Well, let's speak about qualifications for a second and actually bring that conversation to, I'm thinking about a young person that is watching the show now and think, okay, we've got SAQA in the spotlight this morning, but I want to understand the significance of such a thing called an NQF level 4. In other words, the National Qualifications Framework level 4 or level 3 for that matter. Take us through exactly, if I'm holding that matric certificate or whatever, or I'm holding a higher qualification, exactly what does it mean in layman's terms?
Okay. Look, the National Qualifications Framework has got 10 levels.
Okay.
And those levels are levels of, more complex qualifications. So in other words, level 1 on the National Qualifications Framework is more or less equivalent to grade 9 at the schooling level.
Okay.
And then you have grade 10 is level 2, grade 11 is level 3, and level 4 is the senior certificate level. Yeah,
so when they say NQFL4 with the numeric 4,
yes,
that means you need to have a senior certificate. That means
that is at the senior certificate level.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then as we progress?
Yeah. And then level 5, it is broadly equivalent to first year at university.
All right.
And level 6 is like second year. Level 7 is third year. So at that level, you will get a bachelor's degree. Level 8 will be the honors year in South Africa. And then level 9 is when you have a master's degree, and level 10 is a PhD or a doctorate degree.
Sure. And obviously when it comes to that, I would believe that then you would be saying the onus is up to employers to make sure that when they do put these specifications on any form of application, they actually specify exactly what do they mean, so people don't misconstrue it, and those that are not necessarily qualified for the job actually end up applying for the job.
Yes. One of the kind of things that one wants to do is to clearly, if you look at the National Qualifications Framework, and that is available on our website, so people can clearly see where their qualifications would fit in on this 10-level frame.
Yeah.
And the reason for having those levels, it also, one of the key things that we are trying to do is to say that all qualifications should be on one framework, so that there's no confusion around it. But then there's the question about how does these qualifications compare with each other? Let me make an example. You get a National Senior Certificate, which is, in common terms, people speak about that as the grade 12. But also you get the National Certificate Vocational. And that is a vocational qualification. And those qualifications are equivalent. Now, very often in South Africa, when employers say they want a particular qualification, they only focus on the National Senior Certificate, rather than also saying that those people that have done the National Senior Certificate or the National Certificate Vocational can also apply.
And is it because they don't have enough knowledge about it, or is it the communication not reaching them?
I think that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
on the one hand, but also on the other hand, in South Africa, people look at vocational qualifications and they don't necessarily see it, as having the same value as academic qualifications or the schooling qualifications. And so one of the things that we're wanting to do is to make sure that that goes on the agenda and that employers and others should also value their own qualifications, because, as, for example, we've got camera people in the studio, there are particular qualifications. And so if ETV would like to have camera people, they must be able to say, these are the vocational qualifications that is needed for this particular job. So we really need to change the mindset of employers.
You've got all our camera crew now attentively listening to you, because now they're thinking, we need to get the actual relevant qualifications. And make sure you verify those qualifications.
Yes.
Let's continue.
Yeah, but I think, so that for me is the important thing, that we must bring workplace qualifications to the fore in South Africa, and it must get its proper recognition.
And then when we're looking at the recognition of prior learning now, and we were speaking about this, the significance of it therefore. So cameraman's been working for 20 years, they don't necessarily have the piece of paper to prove it. How do we verify it?
Well, what happens is that the camera person can now go to a accredited provider, and the accredited provider will look at the qualification that is registered on the National Qualifications Framework. They would ask the camera person to outline, what are the evidence to show that, that the 20 years of experience has, that the person is competent. We'll compare that, and then we'll say, okay, you are competent, and here's the certificate.
Sure. And then when we're looking at the actual being able to sort of find the value of it, I'm going to talk about rands and cents now, because there's this misconception that persists that if you have a certain NQF level, you are entitled to a certain starting amount in the workplace. And perhaps maybe this speaks to the issue around entitlement of the young person who's just finished higher education. They expect a corner office simply because they've got an NQF level 8 for that matter, and therefore they should have a starting salary of this much and this amount. Is that true? Is there that misconception, and why is it that it persists?
Yeah, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
When I finished my honours degree, I went to work at Tygerberg Hospital as a technologist. And I got something like 232 Rand, as a salary. So it doesn't work like that. What the employer does, the employer determines what is your minimum level of qualification, and then, you get paid in terms of the job. For example, other example I want to use, if you're a teacher, there are teachers that got PhDs, but they start with a minimum salary. So there isn't a necessary link between a salary and the qualification level.
Yeah.
In some cases, there may be, but I'm saying, it is not a direct link. So you cannot expect, if you just finished your master's degree, therefore you must earn a specific amount of money. And
obviously we've got the theme that will be underlying sort of the proceedings for this week, and looking at working towards that Agenda 2030. Tell us about that, as well as its alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, look, UNESCO has decided on, there's something like 17 different Sustainable Development Goals. Now, goal number 4, Sustainable Development Goal number 4, deals with the improving quality of education. And that's across the world. Now we know in South Africa we've got a particular issue in terms of the quality of education and so on. And so therefore we are committed, to improving education for the whole nation. Yeah. So the key question then is, what role does a National Qualifications Framework play in improving education, and how can we do it? Now, in our particular case, we are broadly, this is the regulatory framework, so we put a number of policies and all of those kinds of things in place, and make sure that the providers, would meet, those particular policies that we have put in place.
Well, I can definitely say that you've got a whole lot of work in store for you for this week specifically as well there, Mr. Sameuls. But thank you so much for joining us and really shedding some light in terms of the significance of SAQA, the significance of why is it that we're here today, and of course the significance of going forward, as we're speaking about going forward, what are the frameworks that need to be put in place. But thank you so much for joining us for that conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, you heard it from the Chief Executive Officer of the South African Qualifications Authority, Mr. Joseph Sameuls, telling us really about the significance of your qualifications. If you ever wondered, now you know.